Vasseur just exposed what Ferrari was really doing, and it's not what anyone expected. Because during those restricted Fiorano test days, Hamilton didn't just complete laps. He ran the equivalent of a full race distance twice in conditions Ferrari controlled down to the smallest detail. And here's the part that changes everything. This wasn't about tires. This wasn't even about the car. It was about rebuilding a driver in real time, fixing the exact weaknesses that cost Ferrari an entire season. Completely legally, completely hidden, and completely impossible for any other team to replicate. But the most shocking detail Vasseur revealed is why they needed to do this at all. Because what Ferrari is preparing next is so precise, so aggressive, that without this level of adaptation, it simply wouldn't work. And once you understand what that means, you realize this wasn't just a test. It was the moment Ferrari changed everything. It all started with something that, on the surface, made perfect sense. A Pirelli tire test, strictly regulated, carefully limited, the kind of session every team understands, or at least thinks they understand. Because according to the rules, these tests are not designed to improve performance. Teams cannot use the data for development. They cannot fine-tune the car for upcoming races. They don't even know exactly which tire compound they're running on each lap. Everything is controlled. Everything is restricted. Everything is supposed to be neutral. But Vasseur revealed something that changes how you see it completely. Because Ferrari never approached this as a technical test. They approached it as a human one. And that's where the gap begins. Because while the regulations limit what you can do with the car, they say nothing about what you can do with the driver. And Ferrari took that idea to the extreme. Hamilton wasn't there to test tires. He was there to repeat, to relearn, to rebuild. Over 2 full days, more than 200 kilometers of driving in conditions Ferrari controlled completely. And this is where the story becomes something else entirely. Because this wasn't random running. This was structured with precision. Every lap had a purpose. Every run was designed. The same corners, the same braking zones, the same grip levels, over and over again, until something changed. And here's the key detail Vasseur hinted at. They didn't choose easy conditions. They chose the worst ones. Artificial rain, low grip, unstable balance. The exact environment where Hamilton struggled the most in the past. Because if you want to fix a weakness, you don't avoid it. You force it. You amplify it. You repeat it until it disappears. And that's exactly what Ferrari did. They turned Fiorano into a controlled stress environment, where every lap exposed the same problem, and every lap pushed Hamilton to solve it. But this is where it becomes even more strategic, because while Hamilton was on track, something else was happening at the same time. Inside Maranello, Charles Leclerc was in the simulator, working on Miami, testing setups, feeding information. 2 worlds, real and virtual, running in parallel. And this is what Vasseur was really revealing. Ferrari didn't just run a test. They created a system, a loop, track to simulator, simulator back to track, driver to engineers, engineers back to driver, all happening at the same time. No delays, no gaps, no wasted time. And suddenly, what looked like a simple tire test becomes something much more powerful. A controlled environment where adaptation happens faster than anywhere else in Formula One. But here's the part that changes everything again. Because this level of preparation only makes sense if something much more demanding is coming next. Teams don't invest this much effort, this much precision, this much control, unless the next step requires absolute perfection. And that's exactly what Ferrari is building toward. Something that cannot tolerate hesitation. Something that cannot be learned during a race weekend. Something that needs to be understood before it ever reaches the grid. And now, the real question begins to take shape. What kind of system forces Ferrari to prepare a driver like this before they even dare to use it? Because the answer to that question is where everything changes. What Ferrari is preparing is not just difficult to use. It's unstable. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way you can easily see. But in a very specific, very dangerous moment. Under braking. And Vasseur hinted at this without saying it directly. Because when you look at everything Ferrari did at Fiorano, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. They focused on one phase. Entry. The moment where the car goes from maximum speed to maximum load. Where confidence matters more than anything else. And that's not random. Because that is exactly where Ferrari's most ambitious system has its biggest weakness. The transition. From low drag to high downforce. From straight to corner. And if that transition is not perfect, the rear of the car becomes unpredictable, light, unstable, for just a fraction of a second. But in Formula One, that fraction is everything. And this is why Fiorano had to be so controlled. Because you cannot fix that kind of problem in a normal race weekend. You don't get enough laps. You don't get consistent conditions. You don't get repetition. But at Fiorano, Ferrari created the same braking zone over and over again. Same speed, same grip, same pressure, until Hamilton didn't just react to the car. He anticipated it. And that is the key. Because a system like this doesn't work with reaction. It only works with prediction. The driver must know exactly when the rear grip returns. Exactly when the car stabilizes. Exactly how much he can push before the limit disappears. And that level of precision cannot be taught in theory. It has to be felt, embedded, turned into instinct, lap after lap. And that's exactly what Ferrari built during those 2 days. But here's where the story becomes even more revealing. Because Vasseur didn't just explain the process. He exposed the philosophy behind it. Ferrari is no longer designing a car that adapts to the driver. They are designing a system that the driver must adapt to, and that is a completely different approach. More aggressive, more complex, but also far more powerful. Because if you succeed, you unlock performance that others can't reach. Not because they lack the technology, but because they lack the preparation. And that's why this is so difficult to copy. Because other teams can build similar concepts. They can design similar systems. But they cannot replicate the environment Ferrari used to make it work. They don't have Fiorano. They don't have that level of control. They don't have the ability to repeat the same problem until it disappears. So even if they understand what Ferrari is doing, they still can't execute it the same way. And that's the real advantage. Not the idea, not the innovation, the preparation behind it. But there's still one final layer. The one that explains why Vasseur chose to reveal this now. Because this wasn't just transparency. It was a message, a warning, that Ferrari is no longer in the phase of understanding their car. They are entering the phase of exploiting it. And that changes everything. Because once a team reaches that point, performance doesn't come gradually. It appears suddenly, all at once. And by the time anyone reacts, it's already too late. Which leads to the final question, the one everything has been building toward. If Ferrari has already solved the hardest part, if the driver is ready, if the system is understood, then what happens the first time they use it at full potential when it actually matters? Because when that moment finally comes, it won't look dramatic at first. There won't be an obvious upgrade, no massive visual change, no clear signal that something is different. But then the lap begins, and that's when everything starts to reveal itself. The Ferrari pulls onto the straight, and something feels off. Not slower, faster, too clean, too efficient. The kind of acceleration that doesn't just come from power, but from reduced resistance. From a car that is no longer fighting the air, but cutting through it. And then comes the real test, the braking zone. The exact moment that defined everything at Fiorano. Full speed, maximum commitment. And instead of instability, there is control. Instant, precise, effortless. No hesitation, no correction. Just a seamless transition from straight to corner. And that's when it becomes clear. This is not the same car. Not in how it behaves. Not in how it responds. And most importantly, not in how it's being driven. Because Hamilton is no longer reacting to the car. He's ahead of it, positioning it, guiding it, using every inch of performance that Ferrari spent weeks preparing in silence. And this is where the impact becomes impossible to ignore. Because over one lap, it's subtle. A tenth here, another there. But over a full qualifying session, that becomes the difference between chasing and leading. And over a race distance, it becomes control. Control over tire wear, control over energy deployment, control over positioning on track. And suddenly, everything Ferrari built starts to multiply. But here's the part no one will understand immediately. Because from the outside, it won't look revolutionary. It will look smooth, natural, almost easy. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because the complexity is hidden. The preparation is invisible. The advantage is silent. And while other teams start asking questions, looking at data, trying to understand where they are losing time, Ferrari is already operating at full capacity. They're not experimenting. They're not adapting. They're executing. And that gap grows faster than anyone expects. But there's still one final truth behind all of this. The one Vasseur didn't need to say. because everything points to it. Ferrari didn't just prepare for performance. They prepared for the exact moment to release it. Not earlier, not gradually, all at once, when it matters most. And that's why Fiorano was never just a test. It was the foundation, the hidden phase where everything was built without pressure, without noise, without attention. So that when the world finally sees it, it's already complete. And now, there's nothing left to hide. Because the next time Ferrari shows what they've been working on, it won't be a hint. It won't be partial. It will be everything. All the preparation, all the precision, all the risk, revealed in a single moment. And when that happens, we won't be asking what Ferrari improved. We'll be asking something far more important. How long have they already been ahead without anyone realizing it?